What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite Klaviyo email marketing YouTube channel. My name is Philip Moldovano. Today, we're going to be talking about how to properly run tests inside of your Klaviyo account. Okay, I talk to a lot of e-commerce brands on a weekly basis, and the majority of them are running completely random, useless tests inside of their Klaviyo accounts that do not move the account forward and that lose them their most important asset, which is time. Okay, so specifically, what are we going to learn in this video? Well, we're going to talk about why most people's testing strategies are just wasting their time and, more importantly, their money. Okay, we're going to talk about the highest leverage tests to run inside of your accounts. Okay, we're going to talk about what specifically to test and how to actually do it. And also, we're going to talk about how to prioritize what to test based on how much of a revenue impact it's going to have. Okay, so if you've seen any of my other videos, I'm very big on this. There's tons of things we could do inside of our Klaviyo accounts. We could sit in there all day, right? But there are certain things that you want to tend to first before others that are going to yield you the highest return for your time. Okay, so we're going to talk about that now. Why specifically should you listen to me, right? Well, if it's your first time here on the channel, welcome. If you're coming back and you're already subscribed, welcome back. My name is Philip Moldovano. I have over $20 million in added email revenue through Klaviyo with my email marketing agency, Social Scout. We work specifically with e-commerce brands. Actively, at the time of recording this, we manage over 30 different 6, 7, 8, as well as 9-figure e-commerce brands under our management. And I've added over 6 figures to brands' monthly revenues in literally a matter of weeks. I have a cool result here of a brand we managed doing 70% of their business all from Klaviyo, up 400% from the previous period before we started with them. I have literally so many screenshots. Just send me a DM or leave a comment with like anything specifically you'd want to see. I can show you, and I can show you anything. So that's that. Now, why are most tests that people run a complete waste of time? Okay, why is that? Well, first of all, again, I talk to a lot of brand owners on a daily basis, actually, and the majority of them, they don't quite understand it or actually just know what pieces of their account they should be testing first, right? And it's not their fault. I mean, they're the brand owners, right? It's not their job to be sitting inside of their Klaviyo account all day, right? So a lot of them just kind of don't know what to test first, what's going to make them the most amount of money. They're kind of just like randomly testing, subject lines, which, don't get me wrong, are awesome to test, but they're doing that before other more important things, which I'll talk about in the video. And so what happens when you're testing random things that aren't really moving the needle forward is, sure, maybe you're getting like slightly higher open rates, sure, like very marginal improvements, but you're just wasting time, which means, again, you're losing money for longer than you want to be, right? Because every test you don't run, there's opportunity cost involved, as you guys know, right? So you don't want to be letting things just kind of slip away when there's literally a gold mine, and I'll show you, sitting under your nose with some of these tests, okay? Some basic rules of thumb when it comes to actual testing, right? First of all, this is pretty straightforward. Only test one thing at a time, okay? For example, if you're testing a sign-up form, don't test the time delay, the offer, and the image placement at the same time in one test, because sure, maybe your submission rate will go up and that's awesome, and hooray, we're making more money now. But we don't know exactly what we did. Like, we don't know, we weren't able to isolate that variable. We don't know what we actually changed that led to this improvement. So now going forward, we didn't really learn anything, right? As well as sometimes you can manipulate with those variables even further, right? But you don't really know what just happened, right? So only test one thing at a time, okay? Also, let each test become more statistically significant before you make any type of conclusion. I see a lot of people struggle with this. If you're a larger account, this pretty much doesn't apply to you because you're going to have so much traffic flowing through that oftentimes just a day of running a test is all you need. But if you're a smaller brand and you're making conclusions after only like 30 people have been through a flow, right? That's just not enough people, right? You might see a certain result skewed into a certain direction just because, the law of numbers, like that's just kind of how it happened, where if you would have let it go for another 3, 4, 5 days, it would have evened out or maybe even went the opposite direction, right? It's not really a true representation of what is that test actually doing, right? So make sure you have some data there before you actually make decisions. And also importantly here, know the metric that you want to actually move, right? Pretty straightforward. Seems very simple, but you'd be surprised, right? Like, if you're testing subject lines, you're looking to increase your open rate, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day, we're always trying to make more money. But, that's kind of just a symptom of the metric. Like, making more money is a symptom of these. Oh my God. Making more money is a symptom of these smaller metrics, right? So your open rate increasing is what you want to look at to see if this test worked, right? And that open rate increasing will in turn make you more money, obviously, right? So just make sure you kind of know what exactly you're looking for. If it's a sign-up form, you want to make sure your submission rate's going up, right? And so on. Okay. So make sure you understand that. Now, the sign up form, my favorite. If you've seen any of my content, by the way, I have videos on a lot of different topics when it comes to email marketing, very in depth, just sharing all my knowledge. That's what this channel is pretty much intended to be. I'm not really going to hold anything back. No editing, no fancy, kind of effects. We're all business owners here. I'm just kind of making it really straightforward and to the point, very value dense. But the first thing that I always say in my videos is the sign up form. And it applies here too, right? The first thing you should be testing when looking at your Klaviyo account are your forms, okay? Your sign up forms. They are extremely high leverage. Do not test anything else before the form. If you're trying to test your subject lines and you still haven't touched your form, that is a huge no-no. Do not do that. I'm telling you, go back to the form, stop what you're doing, leave that campaign builder and go back to your sign-up form, okay? This is an example of what a proper sign-up form can actually do for your business, right? So here's a client that came to us. Their welcome float was doing $20,000 per month. And literally a month later, we bumped it up to $47,000 per month. How do you think this was possible? Yes, we rebuilt them. We rebuilt their welcome flow, which obviously helped, but you don't get a result as drastic as this by just rebuilding the welcome flow. The sign-up form was a massive reason as to why we were able to add $27,000 to their monthly revenue with a singular flow. We literally, I don't have the exact numbers. I can pull them up for you. I think I mentioned it in another video as well, but I know for a fact we tripled their submission rate, right? Literally overnight because of our testing. Right? We ran 2 different tests. The first time bumped it up by about double. And then by the second test, we kind of had more of a feel for what was working. We bumped it up even more further from that. Right? So this is kind of what it can do. And I have tons of examples of this. So test it out for yourself. And let me get into like what actually should you be testing in your form specifically, right? Because I know that was kind of broad. So maybe I can even just kind of like do this. So first things first, micro commitment versus no micro commitment. Okay. So if you've watched my sign up form video, I have a whole other video on that, by the way, like just on sign up forms. But micro commitment versus no micro commitment, basically, instead of asking for the email up front, ask for it, ask a very low commitment question first. Hey, do you want 10% off? Do you want 20% off? Yes or no, then ask for the email. So test this. A lot of the times the micro commitment will perform better, but you never know. I have brands where we actually don't run a micro commitment because it performs worse. So you have to test these things to figure that out. So that's the first one. Preference versus no preference. A lot of our forms, what we do is we ask them, as a part of the micro commitment, we'll ask them, hey, who are you shopping for? Male, female, or unisex? Or who are you shopping for? My dad or my parents or whatever, right? If it's a gift giving company, my coworker, whatever, right? Ask them a preference, ask them a question before you ask them for the email. And people like feeling heard. They like feeling that they're included, right? So your submission rate will typically be higher. But again, some brands, we don't do that. Some brands, we simply just ask, hey, do you want a discount? Yes or no, because the preference actually doesn't do as well. So you have to test these things to figure them out, right? Time delay, pretty straightforward. But some brands, depending on what you sell as well, do better with a short time delay. Others do better with the long one. If you're selling really high ticket products, if you're selling, $10,000 saunas or ice baths, whatever, right? Doesn't really matter. You get the point. A longer delay is going to suit you better. And majority of your traffic is actually going to convert better in terms of submit rate with a longer delay because they need to see more of your product before they feel comfortable in giving you their info, right? There's more to digest. There's more features of the product, right? Versus a $2 fidget spinner that's coming from TikTok, organic traffic, that needs to be quick. You need to fire that delay quick because those people have short attention spans. They've been scrolling, right? So you kind of get where I'm going with that, but make sure you're testing that. Also, the offer style. So are you giving a percentage off? Are you giving $1 off? Are you giving a free gift? Are you giving an enter to win raffle, right? A million things you could do there, but test these things into oblivion because, a lot of times you can double a form just by changing the offer. So make sure you're testing that, right? Pretty straightforward there. Let's see here. Pop-up design. So some brands, a lot of our clients, we do full screen pop-ups. They perform beautifully. Other brands, their traffic just doesn't like it for whatever reason, right? It's annoying. It's spammy to them. Depending on what you sell, depending on who you're selling to and who your ideal customer profile is, some people might not like it and it actually might hurt you, right? But you have to test them to figure it out. And then let's see, spin to win versus static offer. I included this just because I think it's important to test these things. I will say spin to wins almost very rarely in my experience will outperform like a regular offer or like a micro commitment or a preference micro commitment. But to be fair, I do have some brands who are literally converting at 12% submission rates and we have a spin to win, right? So it's totally random. It just depends on your audience and it depends on the type of traffic coming to your site, right? So test these things. And also obviously just the copy, right? So, oh, whoops, I just gave you everything. Well, we're here now. So the copy, right? Here's 10% off versus you've got 10% off on us, right? The way you word things, although very minuscule, can have an impact, right? We've seen literally running this exact test has helped a little bit in terms of submit rate. Now, doing something like this, I'll be honest, it's not going to double your submission rate, but it will help improve it. And all these little things start adding up after a certain point. Okay. Running a mystery discount versus no mystery discount, right? Some brands, they do really well with a mystery discount. Others, that's their traffic. That's not their jam. They don't like that. So you have to test it. And also, this is a pretty interesting one. We've had clients actually get higher submit rates without an image on the form, like just bare bones, just text, right? And at first, when we were running the test, we were like, no way this is going to perform better. Like it's ugly. Like it just doesn't look good, right? But it performs better by like a lot. So you have to test these things to figure them out because otherwise you'll never know. And you'll just be complacent and you'll be stuck at a 3, 4, 5, 6% submit rate. Even if you're already at a 10%, we have forms doing 13% that we're still testing and we're raising it by 0.5% maybe every 2 weeks, right? And that's, again, really starts to add up, especially if you have a lot of traffic coming to the site. So that right there is your sign up form. Now let me get into your actual automated flows. So once you've tested these things in your sign up form or simultaneously, like while you're waiting for tests to kind of be finished, you can move on to your flows. And by the way, something I didn't mention here, just for what it's worth, I typically recommend about 2 tests per week on some area of the account. One of those should always be on the sign up form. You can obviously do more, but I think that's a very good place to start. 2 tests per week. Make sure that it just kind of makes sure that the account is constantly moving forward and things aren't getting kind of like stale and complacent. But yeah, start there. You can obviously up it from there. Okay. So here are some tests to run in terms of your automated flows. Okay. So first things first is length. Now, I made a whole video on this in terms of like high average order value brands versus low average order value brands. But if you're a brand selling a super high ticket product, the length of your flows has to be significantly longer, right? Because people need more trust building. The sales cycle is longer. They need more social proof, more convincing, basically. And so you want to be testing these things to figure out what length is actually better for me, right? We have had great increases in performance by just extending or even doubling from 3 emails to 6 emails, right? Majority of your revenue is going to come from the beginning parts of the beginning emails and the flow, but you'll still squeeze out a lot of extra revenue from these later emails that you otherwise would not have had. So you want to make sure you're testing these things. Next, we have the discount timings. This is a pretty big one that I see a lot of brands completely messing up, right? So for example, in an abandoned cart flow, right? I see a lot of brands, they're just instantly giving 10% off in the first email. You abandon your cart, 30 minutes later, here's 10% off, come back, please. You're basically like begging, please, please, please come back. Here's 10% off, right? So not only does that kind of look a little cheap, it kind of hurts your brand perception a little bit. People are like, really, dude? Like you're already giving me a discount, Not only does it do that, but also a lot of people we found, they just need a simple reminder. Like they don't need a discount. They were going to purchase anyways. They just forgot, they got distracted. And now you just gave away your margin for no reason, right? So we've actually been testing it. We've been moving the discount to a later part in the flow, typically email number 3, right? So you can test these things. And by the way, we found that by moving it later, the front end conversion of the flow actually stays the same. It doesn't go down by removing the discount. And we actually end up making more money on the back end of the flow. So the flow just makes more money overall. And we get to save more of our margin because we're giving less people a discount. You see what I'm saying? So definitely try that out. And that's another thing you could test right there. Time delays, same thing with the sign up form, also applies to your flows. Are your flows firing quickly and aggressively, or are they more kind of like slower, drawn out, letting things sink in, right? If you're a low ticket brand, especially like consumable stuff like that, you want to get your consumption rate up, right? You want people to see you as much as possible in that first kind of window, and you want to convert them as quickly as possible so that you can, upsell them on the back end and increase their LTV. For brands who are selling high ticket products, you don't have to convert them on the first day, right? You can take your time a little bit and take your time to really, really, really show them a lot of social proof and testimonials and risk reversals and all that stuff, right? So test these things to figure out what's better for your brand. The actual content format. So really common tests we run is a plain text email versus an image-based email in a lot of our flows, right? So obviously in the actual node builder within Klaviyo, you can run A/B tests on different content. So say, deliver the same message, whatever you're trying to say the same thing, but have one variation as plain text, have the other as image based. And a lot of the times, actually, it's pretty random. Sometimes image based does better, sometimes plain text does better. It's really a matter of like what the message is, what are you trying to portray, what is your audience, right? But test these things to figure them out. The actual content itself. So test new angles, show more social proof. What else did I put here? Monitor your conversion rate while you're doing this, right? If you're testing new angles and you're trying different things, obviously make sure you're keeping an eye on the actual metric that you're doing this in the first place for, right? And then finally here, test different path splits, right? So a lot of the times we've actually found increased performance by segmenting in our flows by product, by category. For example, in a post-purchase flow, something we do very often is we will, if someone has a certain type of product in their cart, we'll show them in the emails something very related or very complementary to that specific product or to that specific category, right? So you want to test having these splits in the actual flows. Another one we do here, not to bore you with the technical stuff here, but I guess that is kind of why you're here, right? But what we do in our abandoned checkout / abandoned cart flows is a lot of brands you'll see they have like a. You may also be doing this as a brand owner, but they'll do any order above $99 gets free shipping, right? Or whatever, $49 free shipping, right? So what we do is we actually split the abandoned cart flow and we split it by cart value. So people who have above $99 in their cart, they go down the yes path, and people who don't go down the no path. The yes path, all of the emails there we're testing, they are spamming them with you have free shipping, we're making sure that they understand that they've qualified for this incentive, right? Because you want to make sure people know about it. I see a lot of brands, they offer this incentive and they don't tell people about it in the flows. So we've been testing this and running A/B tests on the content and the emails, and it's been performing beautifully, right? So, obviously you wouldn't have figured that out if you weren't running the test, right? So that is the automated flows right there. Give me 2 seconds. Let me plug in my computer. All right. We're back. Don't worry. I'm here. What are we going to run in terms of testing on our actual campaigns? Okay. So not to bore you, there's a lot of stuff you could do here, but I'll just give you everything, right? Send time. This is a big one. So if you're selling a certain type of product, you have a certain type of audience, and that audience might respond better at different times of the day or different times of the night. I talk about this also in another one of my videos, but for example, if you're selling baby products, right? Baby rompers, whatever, right? Doesn't matter what you're selling. You want to send, and we have clients who do this, you want to send more so at night, right? 8 p.m., 9 p.m., because the parents have put the kids to bed, they're winding down for the night. That's when they're on their phones really kind of looking at things, right? And so they've seen increased performance by sending at night, which is kind of contrary to popular belief, right? Most people will tell you 9 a.m., 10 a.m., right? So you have to test these things to figure them out. Testing subject lines, right? This right here, pretty straightforward, but it does actually help. Whatever the actual message is in the email, if you have some type of incentive or product launch or something worth knowing in the email, make sure that the subject line is portraying that. The subject line, the way I like to think about it, and the way I tell people, the subject line is like a sales pitch for the email, right? Don't be afraid to kind of like clickbait people a little bit, right? Don't say anything that's not true in there, but like make sure they want to open the email, right? That'll help a lot. And test different subject lines all the time, right? Number of CTAs. So I've been testing this. I kind of did this test for you. Actually, my channel is basically just doing tests for you. So saves you a lot of the time and trouble. But we've actually found that increasing the amount of CTAs in your emails pretty much every single time will increase conversion rate, right? Just giving people more of a chance to get onto the site pretty much always works. But again, test it for yourself. Testing the different segments you're sending to. So who are you actually sending emails to? At what times, right? For example, I have a whole video on this as well that I just posted like 2 days ago on sales strategy. But when our brands are running sales, we have so many different segments that we're sending to, and we've been testing these beforehand. So we know what's going to convert, right? For example, before a big sale starts, we'll take all of our VIP customers and all of our high AOV purchasers, and we will put them into a segment, and we will send them an early access email to the sale, right? And these people are just going to buy like crazy, right? Because first of all, they already like your brand. They've already proven that they want to come back, and they've already proven they spent a lot of money with you. So they already like your brand. And also now we're making them feel special. Like, hey, you have special access, early access. That just crushes. And we've been testing to figure that one out. Resend to, let me see, unopeners versus not resending to unopeners. So we've been doing this a lot too. Some brands it's not really worth doing, but you should test it. If people don't open your campaign or whatever, just resend it to the non-openers. And a lot of the times you will get a a decent amount of opens from that. Just be careful with it, because if your unopeners segment is just like really not opening it, it'll just tank your open rates, and then your deliverability will go down. So, not a crucial one here, but I wanted to include it. Also here, the offer framing. So how are you actually presenting the offer? If you're announcing a new product, run an A/B test on these campaigns and have slightly different variations in like how you announce it and the verbiage you use and how you build excitement, right? And the emotional triggers you're using. Like, test everything. Okay. And then also text-based versus graphic-based. Text-based emails perform really well. It depends on the topic. Most of the time they perform better, but you have to test these things. Some brands have an audience where they just love text-based emails. Like, they just love them and they perform beautifully. Others, they perform well every now and then, but it's pretty much graphic-based that lead the way. You have to test these things to figure them out. So, moral of the story here, before I get into my closing remarks, test everything. Start with a sign up form, then do your flows, and then do your campaigns. Okay. Run 2 tests per week minimum, and make sure you're focusing on things that will actually move the needle forward, hence make you more money. Okay. Don't waste your time with things like subject lines before you've handled and you've kind of started, getting your grounding with these other areas that I just mentioned. Okay. And the last thing I want to say here, if you want a team of experts to come into your Klaviyo account and help you scale your e-commerce brand without you having to lift a single finger, without you having to touch anything in your Klaviyo account or do anything I just mentioned, book a call with me using the link in the description. I will do a free audit on your entire Klaviyo account. We can go over it together on the call. I can explain to you exactly what is going wrong. I'll explain to you every bottleneck in the account, and I will give you a concrete revenue projection of where we'd be able to take you in a certain time frame. Okay. So if you're interested in that, if you're interested in kind of just letting us take the reins on Klaviyo and kind of using our expertise that we've accumulated after working with over 50 different brands, click the link in the description, book a call with me. I look forward to speaking with you. And I hope you guys liked the video. If you have any other topics, shoot them over in the comments. I'm happy to make a video on anything else you guys want to see. I have tons more coming soon, and I appreciate it, guys. Thanks.